Welcome to the Family Legacy Podcast, the podcast that goes beyond legal jargon and gets to the root of how to ensure your past, present, and future are protected. This episode is brought to you by the Rutkowski Law Firm, Michigan's leading asset protection, estate planning, Medicaid, and elder law firm. And here's our host, Michael Rutkowski. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me as always, Carrie. Nice to see you.
Always. Yes, you too. Happy Tuesday. Well, one holiday down,
Yeah,
2 more to go. Multiple to go, depending on what you celebrate.
sure.
We're in the in between. How are you using this time between, like, what's the build up for you all like, and like, how do you?
Yeah, it's a great
It's
question. What's really nice right now is so having 3 daughters that are into a million things. Um, Activities are slowing down, so it's just been really good to fall seasons have ended because of the holidays and everything. The practices are a little lighter, so it's just been good to like have some family gatherings, kind of just slow down for a minute. Our weekends aren't as crazy. And I think what's just been really important for my wife and I is just like enjoying and being in the moment. Like, it'd be so easy right now to be like, well, let's spend the weekends knocking out these projects. But instead, we're like trying to be intentional about being with our kids and family. Um, because otherwise, we could just go down that rabbit hole all the time of just there's always so much to do and
always.
never enough time to do it. And so it's just been kind of nice. And I think my goal for, going through the new year is to just, take a step back, relax a little bit, and just spend time with family because it's just going to ramp up right after the first of the year.
And it goes so fast. Like,
Yeah.
my kids are gonna be 9.
Yeah, I know.
It's just wild.
I have a teenager
The
now. So, I mean,
Oh wow,
yeah. Yeah, over
that's a
Thanksgiving.
whole new ball game.
Yeah, over Thanksgiving, we celebrated my daughter's 13th birthday. So now I got a teenager, 13 going on 18.
Oh, I
Yeah.
have an 8-year-old who's operating in that motion.
Yeah.
Well, not nine, now 9-year-old operating as an 18-year-old. It's so great. It's
It goes so
slow
fast.
down, girls. Slow
Yeah,
down. The world can wait.
I know. I know. So that's
I
really
love this though. I played board games last night. I want to do
nice.
more puzzles and board games and just like dining room table together. There's something about the dining room table
Yeah.
as a family that I just
Yeah.
love.
Put
And
the
so I'm
phones
with you.
put the phones aside and just connect.
Yes,
Couldn't
I
agree
love
more.
that.
Couldn't agree more.
2 episodes ago, we left y'all hanging where we ended the episode talking about trusts in how you could set them up in different locations away from where you live. And I wanted to crack that egg a little bit more to understand what the benefits are. What does being outside of your area or jurisdiction even mean? And how we go about it. So let's start first, Michael, with sort of a recap for folks around trusts and why the location matters.
Yeah, good question. Um, rewind the clock 20, 30 years ago on estate planning. Most estate planning needed to be done in your state because all the states had much more specific rules that apply in each state. So 30 years ago, there was really no such thing as doing any other state's trust. If I live in Michigan, doing a Delaware trust, or if I live in Colorado, doing a Michigan trust, like those things just didn't really happen. So you were working with your local estate planner to put in place a trust that complied with your state's rules, a will that complied with your state's rules, powers of attorney, you name it. Like every state was much different in how they regulated estate planning. Fast forward the clock to today, and we're now adopting, and actually Michigan just did this as of July of 2024. We adopted a Uniform Power of Attorney Act. And this is the trend that keeps happening, is that states are becoming more aligned in how they do estate planning, which makes it great for us as estate planners to now explore different options. Like, does it make sense? Why would we do a trust for another state for someone? And it always comes back to what are the client's goals, and then knowing your options when it comes to other goals. Asset protection is a big one. And a great example here of why you might do a different state's trust. Not every state has adopted asset protection statutes. So which means you could execute a irrevocable trust in the state of Colorado, and I know this for a fact, Colorado has not adopted yet asset protection statutes. You could do a trust that says all the things, but if you were sued, a judge would immediately unwind that trust and those assets would be exposed. So there would be no asset protection because the state just doesn't recognize that. So if you live in a state that doesn't have a solid foundation for asset protection, you might want to look elsewhere. Same things goes for if we're doing tax planning. Maybe we're looking at another state's trust to accomplish whatever goals we're looking to accomplish. Does that make sense?
It does. So it sounds like for two main reasons would be in case you get sued, and or tax planning. And tax planning, to my recollection of a few episodes ago, is more around if you have 12 million as an individual or 24 million as a married couple,
Right.
is when that would come into play,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah, correct.
but for everyday families who have a good amount of assets and they want to protect them from, potentially getting sued, setting up in Michigan would help
Yeah.
alleviate that pain, as we talked about in the previous episode about, how a trust can support you
Sure.
from that.
Yeah.
Um,
So let me be clear here. Let's say you wanted to start with your foundational estate plan, a revocable living trust. That could easily make sense to just find a local estate planner and do that. But we even do sometimes planning for other families if there's a relationship there. If we worked with mom and dad and the son who lives in Ohio has been part of the meetings all along and just trusts us and wants to work with us, we can help them. We're not out marketing across the country for revocable living trusts, but Michigan actually has really solid asset protection statutes. So we've been doing a lot of Michigan asset protection trusts for families all around the country, which has been super cool. And that's, kind of a new development in the last 10 years or so.
I find it wild that you could live in like Tennessee but set up a trust. Like there's no rules or guardrails around where you set your trust up. Am I understanding
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah, and it's an easy way maybe to understand that, and something we're all more accustomed to is setting up a business in another jurisdiction. So a lot of us have heard like you should set up your business in Delaware because Delaware is very, friendly to corporations and the rules of that. It's the same thing. I mean, essentially a trust is very comparable to a business structure and it's an entity just like a business is. And some states have much more favorable rules for that entity than others do. So I think that's an easy way to understand because we've all heard like, oh, set up your business in Nevada or Delaware or these other states, not California, and trust the same kind of things apply. It's what are we trying to accomplish and what might be the benefits of setting up a trust in a different state versus your own.
Are there any complications that we should be aware of? Like when you set up
Yeah.
a business in another state, there's some guidelines you need to follow in terms of like having a presence to some degree and those sort of things. Is
Yeah.
there anything in regards to that you need to be, if you want to
Great
set one up in
questions.
Michigan, but you don't live there?
Yeah, there's less restrictions than businesses as far as like how you can set one up in another state. But what does apply, just like in businesses, is you're subjecting yourself to that jurisdiction. And what that means is, let's say you live in Ohio and you're setting up a Michigan asset protection trust. If there's ever an issue related to that trust, it's governed by the laws of the state of Michigan. So we need to figure that out in the state of Michigan, whatever those issues are. So you might be in a court in the state of Michigan, and not that you can't hire an attorney to go represent you and you don't even have to be there, but just know that if someone is contesting the trust, which could be a benefit, right? Like it's going to make it that much harder for someone to contest it because if you live in Alabama and you have a Michigan trust, they're going to have to go up to Michigan to contest it. And so that's one more layer which could prevent someone from bringing an action against it. But if there's something else that needs to be figured out, it's going to have to be figured out in a Michigan jurisdiction. But in all honesty, if you've done the plan with us or any other attorney in any other state, they can probably help you get the thing resolved in that state. So it shouldn't really be a problem.
So you can show up to help with whoever's contesting it and they don't have to be there? You could just go on their behalf?
We could do a whole episode on this question. It all depends. It all depends on what's the issue. And so kind of the heavier the issue, at some point the client might have to show up. But if it's just some administrative stuff, like we're getting a new trustee appointed or something, that can be done. And now with Zoom, most courts allow Zoom. There's some jurisdictions in the state of Michigan that actually do no more in-person meetings. Wayne County in Michigan has done away with in-person meetings completely, and they do everything on Zoom. So a family can join via Zoom. They can we can request any court to do that now, which is just incredible.
That is
The
incredible.
barriers,
That's
as you can see,
game-changing.
as we talk through this, the barriers are coming down. The
Yeah.
barriers of why it might be less advantageous to do another state's trust, they're all being removed. It wouldn't surprise me in 10 years if they're completely removed, and now we can we can work with any family in any state for every single issue, and it's just seamless.
Sounds like we're turning into one country in some regard.
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
Every state does have their specifics. So I mean, just here's another episode we could talk about is how are rules created. So usually it starts with a federal mandate of like, here's the baseline of the rule, and then every state is allowed to further restrict it. So okay, we've talked a lot about asset protection. The country says asset protection is okay, and then every state then further says yes or no and what their rules are.
Okay. All right. Let's circle back on that for sure, because I think that would be helpful for people to continue to wrap their heads around asset protection in general. It's a whole beast in and of itself. Getting back to setting things up in a different state, if you're in Alabama and you want to go through this, do you need an estate planner in Alabama that then works with an estate planner in Michigan to do this, or can you work directly with the estate planner in Michigan? What are the pros and cons of that?
You can now work directly with the source. So you can work directly with the lawyer in the other state that you want to do that. But there's a lot of those relationships, just like you said as well. We work with a lawyer in Colorado that we work hand in hand to get that trust. They kind of, quarterback the process for their clients to make it easy so that they have a local presence, but we prepare the trust for them. So it kind of goes both ways. They can reach out, any family could reach out directly and we could help them, or, we have relationships in other states and you could do the same thing.
Is there anything I'm missing in terms of, you sit across the table from families on such a regular basis, and you help them through navigating some of these challenges? Is there any questions that come up from them that I'm missing here, or things you'd like to warn them about in going down this path and getting started in setting up a trust outside the jurisdiction?
Something to be aware of also is like what states have adopted this uniform code. There's the trust one, and then there's one for powers of attorney as well, because really most families want to work with one person, get it all done for them. And so it works best when we're working with a family that's in one of the states that adheres to the universal code, the Uniform Power of Attorney Act, for instance. So that way we can not only do the trust, but we can do their powers of attorney as well, because they can use any state's power of attorney. So just little things like that. Most states have accepted this. I think we're up to like almost 35 now have accepted the uniform code. You always have your typical outliers that are just going to never do it, like California, but it is what it is. They have their own rules and own codes for Medicaid planning. They have the rest of the country, except for California, has the same Medicaid rules. And then California has what's called Medi-Cal. It's its own beast.
Of course they do.
Yeah.
Not surprised. Not surprised. In terms of getting started, do you have to start with an estate plan as a collective? Can you just do a trust?
Yeah.
And can you just do a trust in different jurisdiction? What's your recommendation there?
Great question. We do it every way. Someone who doesn't have any estate planning in place, we walk them through the entire process of what options they have, powers of attorney, wills, trusts. And we also do a lot of asset protection trusts when it makes sense for someone who has their foundational plan, we keep saying Georgia or Ohio, in one of those states, and then they come to us just to layer on an asset protection trust. So all walks of life, really.
I love it. I
Yeah,
love it. And what better way to help families than to ensure that their legacies are protected in a way that is a
yeah,
little bit more locked up, so to speak,
yeah,
of,
yeah.
I
And
love
then the
this. This is
only other
great.
thing to be thinking about is kind of next level of asset protection planning, if this makes sense for the family, is offshore trusts. So when we're talking about jurisdictions, there's other states' jurisdictions, and then there's other countries' jurisdictions. And really, the only reason you'd want to do that is if um, you've already been sued, or you're anticipating the lawsuit to happen, or you're in so many lawsuits that you can't even keep track anymore. We can actually establish a trust in another jurisdiction country that will not allow any U.S. Person to go over and try to attach those assets. So
How?
it's
How
pretty,
is that possible?
yeah. It's
Like,
just,
because it's one thing, like you're in Michigan, and so somebody comes to you to say, "Hey, you're in Michigan, and I'd like to set up a trust in Michigan for asset protection." That's great. You're there in Michigan. But when you're talking about an entirely different country, I mean, what are the rules and regulations there in terms of being able
yeah.
to
I
make?
mean, this is what you see in movies when people are talking about like offshore accounts. Like, it's real.
Yes.
It's a real thing, and you can set up offshore trusts in countries that, if our country submits a judgment to attach assets in the other country, those countries have such favorable rules against that they're just like, no, blocked. You cannot touch these assets. It's pretty wild.
That is wild. As
Yeah,
somebody who lives in a different country, I have a whole host of questions. But hopefully, people who are listening don't have their hands in lots of
yeah,
lawsuit pies out there and are relatively clean. But hey, when you own a bunch of businesses and you have a lot of assets, you might be finding yourself
yeah.
in some sticky situations
You're a
unnecessarily.
target.
So
You're a target often.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if
Just
that's the case and you're a target and you need a uh, trust that you'd prefer to be elsewhere, give us a call.
Yeah,
Give us a call.
for sure.
Well, this is wonderful. If you want to learn more about setting up your trust in another state or jurisdiction, please call us at 248-955-2842, or you can email Michael at mlr@rutkowskilawfirm.com. Michael, before we go, we're going to talk again in a few days here, in a week or
Yeah,
so. What are
yeah.
you most we talked about the downtime. Is that what you're most looking forward to, or is there anything else coming up for you?
Yeah, my wife's brother's family's coming in town, and I can't wait because he has three girls the same age as my three girls. So I think I'm just continuing with the mantra through the holidays of like, connect and take advantage of time with family.
Yes to that. Yes to
Because
that. And
after
downtime.
the first of the year is a busy time for us. New Year's resolutions, somehow estate planning makes that list.
Well, if you were looking for New Year's resolutions, maybe start looking into estate planning and seeing if that's something that you might need.
Want
And
to
if
keep
it is,
here.
give us a call. Give us a call. We'd love to help you out. Michael, thank you again. Thank you for listening. If you liked this episode, please like, subscribe, and share. This episode was brought to you by Rutkowski Law Firm, Michigan's leading asset protection, estate planning, Medicaid, and elder law firm. And again, if you'd like our help with estate planning and asset protection needs, please call 248-955-2842. Again, that's 248-955-2842. Have a wonderful holiday season, everyone.
Take care.